Hello. Hello there. And welcome
Hi.
to another
Hi, friends.
episode of the Band Batch talking about Andor, the music and sound, the music and sound of. I'm Xanthe, this is James and Justin, and we're going to talk about episode 5 today. So if you're in the
Yes, we
chat throughout the episode, a couple things. Let us know if anyone's volume is too loud or too soft, or just if we're not in balance. And then if at any point you have something to share about maybe a favorite music or sound moment, or you have a question, please just drop it in the chat. And we definitely want to hear what you have to say.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So first, where do we even start? This was a relatively quiet episode, musically
Sure,
speaking.
Yeah. Or like static episode in some ways. Like
Yeah.
I felt like
Yeah.
there wasn't like a whole lot of musical development. It was a lot of, just a lot of holding. It felt like in some ways. You know?
Yes.
Very like another slow burn. I mean, a lot of people have been saying that the whole show is kind of a slow burn, but it feels like the first 3 episodes all came out at the same time, so we got the big climactic release at the end of those 3 episodes, so we can kind of like not forgive, but like go along with the slow burn. But now since we're doing 1 episode a week now, I feel like
Yes.
maybe the big release maybe it's the 3s. Maybe they're going in 3s here. We just got through 2 of them, the slower ones.
Yeah. It feels like that's the structure, I think. For sure.
What did you think of that?
I mean, I like all this little tiny details and stuff like that. I think it's fascinating that we're getting like a real raw look at the average non-major character of the infinite Star Wars universe, or at least the tale that we've all, have come to see from all the movies. It's interesting to see all these like little, I don't know, even just like Lieutenant Gorn catching the guy smoking up on the bridge, and then they start talking about like, oh wow, yeah, they're gonna, I don't know. There's just these like little moments that are kind of interesting, or even that navigational device that was being geeked over about, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's interesting to hear.
Yeah, I'm finding that I feel like in terms of the shows that I've really loved from Star Wars, oftentimes the time I say out loud to myself while watching, I love this show, is oftentimes after the episode's over. Like it's very fast moving, boom, 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 pow, and at the end I go, I love this show, right? I find myself saying that like in the middle of these episodes to myself, because there's just these little things that come along that you're just, I feel like I'm just noticing and seeing and just appreciate and taking it all the detail that I find myself while I'm watching it being like, dude, like I can't believe they put that much work in some of this stuff in terms of just like the effects, the visuals, the little intricacies of this character development. It's just there's so much in the show that's not below the surface, but like on the like right, like just waiting for you, one moment I'll say is like, remember that one scene where what's the character's, the one that's a double agent that's kind of their contact at the base?
Isn't that Gorn?
Is that what his name is? Is Gorn?
Wait. Lieutenant Gorn, right?
Yeah, the lieutenant. Yeah, Gorn. So, by the way, is that? I feel like I've seen that actor somewhere else.
Oh, really? I'm so bad at actors.
But I recognize him from something, but I don't remember what it was. But yeah, Lieutenant Gorn. Remember that one random scene where he comes down and is yelling at those Imperials for doing like target practice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, right? And then they like, there's all these like little there's these little shots, and like with the set dressings, they've got these like shields there and these like, I'm just like looking, I'm just like, this is kind of like a not a throwaway scene, but just like a little one-away scene, but like the sets and and the visuals just look amazing just for this one little weird scene that I just feel like some of the other Star Wars shows that are like using the volume, like you just don't get to see all as much rich variety of the different parts of the set like we are. And I think part of that is they shot it on location, so you can actually physically go out there and shoot shoot in front of that base, you know. But there's just and then all we'll get to this, but like Luthen's apartment and the exterior shots of Luthen's apartment. I don't know. I could go on about all these like just the way that they really they really put a lot of time into world building, both visually and character wise. I'm just I could go on, and we will for a couple hours today. So.
Hey, Jonah. And hey, Michael, saying that, oh, wait, I missed a couple. One advantage of such slow storytelling is that each character has meaning and nothing is rushed or skipped over. Example, secondary characters are not just there to advance the plot, but all develop an authentic individual trait. So true.
So true.
Musically speaking, well, first, we did get the TIE Fighter thing again, which was very exciting. And
that was awesome.
Yeah, after our chat last week, someone dropped in the Discord that the AI generated grid of, I'll put it up, of TIE fighters elephants with TIE fighter ears. Pretty great. It works very well.
TIE fighters with elephant ears.
Yeah.
Elephants with TIE fighter ears.
Whatever.
Yeah.
No, you should put that in and see that probably elephants with like a TIE fighter on each head.
Now that would be interesting.
That would be hilarious. Oh, look at that.
Flying elephant with TIE. Oh no, that's exactly what they wrote, but that's what they got.
Yeah. That's what they.
Yeah, that
I
is.
see.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that is.
Oh, okay.
Flying
No,
elephant
sorry,
with
that's
TIE
exactly
ears.
what it is. Okay, so now I want to see a TIE fighter with elephant ears. Okay, that's what I want to see.
Both would work great. So, yes. Thank you for that.
I see.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
That's pretty great.
And
Oh, go ahead.
oh no, I was gonna say not only is that hilarious, but like the fact that we got this other like really cool TIE fighter scene. I know it's just like again a flyby in if we were in world kind of a thing, but I can't think of another time that we got that much like power out of a TIE fighter kind of a thing. Like we always hear them in space. I was talking to my dad about this. He mentioned this. We watched the episodes together, and he was saying it was so cool to see that because you can see how small a human is next to it. Because we're used to seeing them in space and there's like a swarm of them, but you know to actually have that kind of comparison of the TIE fighter in a valley, not in open space, but like in a valley flying by humans that are on the ground, so close to the ground, and just to hear that like deafening roar, it almost didn't sound like what we're used to a TIE fighter sounding, like
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
This reminds me. What I think what's kind of stood out for this is that from this particular scene with the TIE fighter flying down is this seems like active. What's the word? Aggressive slash. Antagon. What's the word? Like an active intimidation.
Yes.
But that's emotional. You could almost. I almost expected them to cut to the pilot and see them laughing inside their TIE fighter. This reminds me of like war scenes in like American soldiers in like Vietnam, like doing things to deliberately antagonize the people that they're kind of have Imperial presence in there, right? And we don't often see that from the Imperials. They're usually cold-hearted and kind of sterilized in the way that they're being oppressive in many ways to the people that they're oppressing. But we don't often see like a hotshot, like jerk pilot, like actively like let's go fly low over these villagers just to because here's the thing is like when you watch that scene you're like, oh, are they gonna find them out, right? Like in terms of like them training for a siege, but really this pilot is just a cocky jerk that just wants to like basically deliberately scare the locals and has probably not even a blip on their radar for that these locals might be planning some type of overthrow, right? So I found that interesting. We don't often see that type of bullying. That was what it was. It was bullying, right? Oppressive bullying.
Totally.
Yeah.
And like immediately after the very next scene, we have Lieutenant Gorn on the bridge talking to that pilot away from his station, or the operator, and he's even saying, "We got all these people." You know, he was being very degrading to the inhabitants of this planet that they took over. Like right there, he said something like still enough to smell them, or something like that.
Right.
It's like.
It kind of reminds me of like Full Metal Jacket, or like or Apocalypse Now, when they're all surfing on the beaches of Vietnam and stuff like that. That's what it kind of reminds me of, these like arrogant imperial forces, you know. So
Hello there. We were just
There you
showing
go.
off your
Good.
TIE elephant.
good work, good work.
Okay, so a few things from last week that, like, I agree that this episode didn't really offer too much new in terms of music, but there was one very pervasive. I don't know if it's new, but it sounded somewhat new to me, like melody, or I don't know, musical thing that happened, and then there was like also the continuation. Like, James, you were right. There was triangle again.
Yeah, but you're right.
But there is
okay,
a-
so
there is-
I want to take that W, everybody. I hope everybody, when they were watching, wait, I want to but I want to know. But here's the thing: is I do want to admit something else. Okay.
Okay.
So what? So during her is
We're
it
talking
Dedra or
about Dedra. Dedra. Mhm.
Yeah, Dedra or Dedra? Is it Dedra?
Dedra.
Right. So during Dedra's scene, talking to my favorite Imperial underling, I just love this. I don't know who this actor is, but he's great.
He's so great.
He's
I
so
really
happy.
just love. I love his look. I love the way that he. I don't know. I just
I loved
really
their
love
interaction.
yeah, I really like him. He's a great casting for that guy. But when she's talking, you hear indeed in the background, it's just this kind of static triangle. However, and I was gung ho about triangle being like Dedra's sound last week, and I still kind of feel that way. But unfortunately, it also appears in a completely non-Dedra related scene in this episode.
Yep.
It's when Goran is talking to that scene we literally just talked about. Okay, when Goran is on the bridge talking, I believe that's the scene I'm thinking of. It's definitely when Goran's on the bridge, and he's talking to that pilot, I believe.
Yeah, and
About
I
the
mean,
smell.
about it also appears. I didn't catch it there, but I
Okay,
caught
maybe
it
I'm
when-
is it maybe I'm thinking of a
it's
different
it's
spot,
another
but it's
Imperial
Goran
scene,
related.
though. Absolutely,
It's Goran
It's
related for sure.
No, it's the when I forget the character's name, the other Imperial ISB officer who's in control of that area, and he's offering up like a headquarters. They're
Yeah.
ransacking. They're ransacking the area, and they're like, "Do you want this? Like as a hotel? No, as like your headquarters. You're taking the
Oh
assignment."
Right.
yes, that
It's-
scene.
it's
that
that
scene.
scene.
Yeah.
I forget the.
Yes.
I forget the
He was like, "Can I be
character's name.
prefect?"
Yeah, prefect.
I see.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. We don't often get to see that, by the way.
Yeah.
That's an interesting. That was an interesting perspective. Like we don't often get to see like the beginnings of an Imperial presence on a planet. They're like you just see that. We usually see them like they've moved in and that's their headquarters. You don't get to see like, hey, is this base gonna be good for us? You know, like is this building gonna be good? And let's turn it into an Imperial headquarters. So really interesting perspectives on the beginnings of an Imperial occupation, right?
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think I'll still give you a W on this because I never really subscribed to
I'll
this
take it.
being Dedra's triangle. I
Dedra's
sort of
triangle.
to me it's part of the Imperial. Just
Well,
like
she
the
is
Imperial-
trying to triangulate where the rebel forces are coming from. So
It's the
I just
Imperial
wanna-
triangle.
I just want to throw that out there.
So
But
we-
okay. Anyway,
We're done.
I'm just imagining now stormtroopers going by, and instead of like a marching snare to keep them in time, and just someone in the back just hitting a triangle.
playing a triangle.
Left, left, ding,
Right?
ding in the back.
So we did hear a continuation of the Imperial, both the chord progressions and that cello line. And in that scene with Dedra and her aide, or whatever his position is, I don't really remember. But I believe his name is, what is his
Hurt?
name? Hirt or something?
Here, something like that.
So, last week we were talking about how the this sort of chord progression that we're hearing in the Imperial sections, which is like, and it was this. Oh, except much slower. And it was like or something like that. And we were talking about how that progression is associated with like villainy and evil, and it is also like reminiscent of the Imperial March.
For sure.
With this chromatic medium, with this relationship between the chords, is continued here, even though it's a different composer, and I don't think. And we also heard that in Kenobi as well, in a completely different theme, completely different composer, and I'm sure Natalie Holt and Nicholas Britell did not collaborate on their various Imperial themes, but they both have the same chord progression because it's the Imperial March beginning. So here we have this like kind of loop that plays 3 times, and it starts. Okay, we hear like it in a low bass first. A low bass does the like bass notes, and then we kind of hear these like stabs. No. In brass, so it's like.
Xanthe, we got to work on your mouth brass.
Well, no,
It's more.
this is bass.
Oh, this is bass. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Don't worry.
Don't worry.
And so kind of is doing like this relationship multiple times. So it goes A to F, and then it goes from C to A flat, and then it does E minor, and then it kind of goes back to the first one. A, F, C, A flat, E flat. And it does it 3 times, super slow, and each time it's very soft, and there's this like lead tone, I guess, this lead synth, and it's like very wobbly. It's like the pitch isn't stable, and it kind of
that oscillating.
Yeah, and it sounds like enough. It's like stable enough that you can hear what pitch it's supposed to be, but then it sort of like is like does all these blips and like dips and stuff, and then the triangle comes in the 3rd time this chord progression plays, and then at the end of the scene when they're like, I think it's like when she's like, either it's too random to be random, or maybe it's when she's like 2 more files each, is when we get the kind of brief crescendo, and it's like, and then it just doesn't play the whole rest of the theme that we heard last week. It just that stinger, which is like similar to how we hear, many other themes that have sort of an antecedent phrase, which is like the first part, and then a consequent phrase, which is the second part. So even with the Imperial March, we often it's enough to hear dee 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 dee, even if we don't hear dee 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 dee. And so Dedra's whole theme was but we just heard the beginning. So, and we did hear her theme, I think, twice, but just very, very small statements of it, very buried. So,
I find those triangle hits very. I think Justin nailed it with the when you have, she's kind of like the leading force of discovery, you know, in terms of the Imperial, within the Imperial machine right now, in terms of like what's going on. And so that idea of it being an idea, like, ding, what's going on in the background?
It kind of
Things
lines
are
up a
coming to
little
light
when,
here.
yeah.
Triangulating.
Triangulating. You like that,
Triangulating.
Xanthe. You like that, don't you? What were you saying? Lines up, Justin?
No, I was gonna say it kind of even almost like lines up every now and then to what it's like. Oh, she's realizing something. Oh,
Right.
It's a new face. It's a new, like, realization. I like how she gets deep into like, if I were the rebels, this is what I would do. It's like, she got ruthless there for a moment. I liked that.
She's got a lot of parallels to Cyril in but on a larger scale, right? Which is like, and I'm wondering if Cyril was somewhat foreshadowing to like what's going to happen to Dedra, or whether there's going to be some connection between those those two characters, because she's at a grander scale, like, you know, where Cyril's trying to solve the murder, these two murders on his own, in his own system. Dedra's trying to solve, where are these rebel, outbursts coming from, and are they all related? But everyone's telling her, just let it go, right? Similar to how everybody was telling Cyril, just let it go. So I found that really interesting, and I'm wondering how we're sitting here wondering what's going to happen to Cyril, in some ways, and I'm curious if those two are going to somehow connect. You know, I actually went back and rewatched the first episodes, and the more I watch Cyril, the more I'm like, this guy's like made to be an Imperial. Like, remember we didn't get to talk too much about him, but remember he like tailors his outfit.
Yeah,
in the
his
first
trimming
episode.
and stuff.
Yeah, which is so funny. Like, you never. That type of conversation is never, like, so rarely happens because you just see like these people in the, like, you know, like, that are like so well put together. And that's such an Imperial thing to do. It's like, that's what the Imperials are all about, like, appearances, make everybody like intimidated, right? And this, you know, this like boss of his, this lazy boss of his is like, did you alter your uniform? And he's like, I've done some slight trims and tailorings, you know? Anyway, point being is like, I think Cyril, if I'd have to predict, I think he's going to somehow get involved with the Empire, if that's not obvious. But, and I think Dedra might be a link in for him, because they both have a similar, ambition in that way, right? So.
And in a way, they're like both looking for Cassian without knowing that they're both. You know what I mean? They're both they have like a very common goal. And the fact that Cassian doesn't actually know that they're both after him. I remember watching this episode and thinking, like, Cyril's still in this. He still wants to get Cassian, but to the best of everybody's knowledge outside of Cyril's world, no one knows that. You know, which I have this feeling he's just going to appear at the worst time for our heroes, in a way. We'll call them the good guys. He's just going to appear in such a interesting way. And also an interesting thing with Cyril, musically, I don't know. I thought it was interesting that this episode started with the same chords that start the first episode. They have that
right.
What is it? This in the strings kind of a thing. And weren't we talking about these last week with Luthen as well, kind of talking about this mask, perhaps like revealing people in different ways. So if we keep with that headcanon of ours, it's interesting to see that with Cyril, having had his mask removed in a way and needing to find a new face.
Yes.
I thought that was really interesting.
It's also the
Plus
sadness
we're talking about
of their situations.
The sadness of.
That little ditty.
Yeah.
I just want to say
Also,
that I want to take a W on something, where I called Cyril the sad lo-fi boy, and then sure enough, this episode starts with him sitting by the window. In that,
Lo-fi boy.
all he needed was a cat, and then he would be the lo-fi the lo-fi boy.
lo-fi
So that
boy.
is
Oh, I
Yes,
love
that's
that.
lo-fi.
Cyril.
Oh, his mom is great. I'm loving this
my
relationship.
God. I'm loving it too.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really hoping that. I mean, this is kind of mean, but I'm hoping that he gets back at her in some.
Oh yeah.
Like that's it. Maybe that's his changing point. Maybe that's his snapping point.
Well, I don't hope he
you
gets
know.
back at her, but
I just see it in a way. I see, there's definitely some trauma there. A lot of trauma.
for
Yeah.
sure.
This to me reminds me of like Norman Bates or I mean that's to an extreme level with Norman Bates, but Joker. I don't know if anyone's seen that movie, but that's very much like living in with a traumatic parent, but also, you can just see how her expectations of him and the way that she speaks to him and talks to him affects, his behavior. So yeah.
And I like how it's this blue theme of food continues. I'm sorry, we had the blue chow mein earlier, or the blue takeout, and then now it's blue
food,
blue fruity pebbles with blue milk on top. I love how he picks it up. He's just looking at it. He's like, my childhood food. I love his room too. It's so obvious that it's his childhood room that's never changed since he's left. Yeah. He's got his models in the back. It's small. It's
That's so true. So
really
this show is basically. So what you're saying, Justin, is this show is basically the answer to that George Carlin bit where he's like, "Where's all the blue food? No food is blue." He's like, "We got red food." He goes, "Blueberries, those are purple, and you know it." He's like, "Where's all the blue food?" So it's all in Star Wars. Andor is where all the blue food is.
All Star Wars.
On the table at the beginning, I think the fruit on the table looked like a kiwano and a rambutan. I don't know if they were actually those, but I just thought that they looked like that.
I think somebody pointed out in the comments somewhere, I don't remember where I was reading it online, that those aren't props, those are real fruit, like actual real fruit.
So they might be a kiwano and a rambutan.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I feel like that's maybe what somebody pointed out that they were, but so yeah.
Yeah.
Because somebody was like, "That's a Melaroon." What was it?
Melaroon?
Melaroon? No, Melaroon. Melaroon? I don't remember. I don't know what they're called. The one from Rebels.
I know what you're talking about.
A conniption
They went on
here.
a Melaroon run.
Melaroon.
That
Is
is
it Melaroon? I
that's
thought it was
Kiwano. Well, now- No, Meluran or something.
Meluran.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, I can't say it.
Meluran.
I feel like
don't know.
Benedict Cumberbatch trying to say the word penguin when if you ever seen that video where he's like
No.
he's like narrating like
Yes.
March of the Penguins, I think, and he can't, not March of Penguins, but Planet
Some
Earth. I don't
penguin
remember what it was.
documentary, and
But he like couldn't say the word. He keeps saying penguins, and he can't like pronounce
Penguins.
it.
Penguins.
Yeah, but he can't
Oh,
he
yeah.
has a trouble
Okay.
with that word.
So the music during the opening credits transition like directly into that Cyril by the window scene, and so it kind of it continues in that vein, and it's the sort of string. It's the strings doing this sort of like triplet thing. It's like dee 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 or something like that. And just the way it sort of seems to glisten as the sun kind of peeks through. Yeah, that's what I noticed about it. I'm hearing my echo, by the way. Like,
I second what you mean by glisten, Xanthe. It's like all the strings have this very like shimmery feel to them, and throughout this whole show, I feel like there's a shimmer.
Yeah.
so Michael says, when I first heard the main theme, I had quite a dark impression and didn't know how to rate it. But I think now that we know the series, it fits really well. The series is cold and very distant. The music brings that across so well. Interesting. I think the main theme is like obscured on purpose, right? Nicholas Bertel has said that, I believe, that like it's supposed to, it's like unfolding throughout the series. Like it's kind of mysterious at first, and then it becomes clearer with every opening credit with more percussion and everything. So I think, I think
The cool thing about this theme is that it's got such a definitive harmonic progression that you can
Yeah.
just play the progression and it hints to the theme. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, as opposed to Bad Batch, where or I'm thinking of some other themes, or maybe even the Boba Fett theme, where like the harmony doesn't change, but it's more like melodically based. But this is very much like, you know, you know, or actually it's more like a, right? You know,
the melody
it's
fits
basically
right into those
just
chords.
playing those chords. You can already hear the right. Or so yeah, I think that's the nice thing about this theme is that you can do lots of development with it all the time because it's such a definitive chord progression, right?
And yet there
was
are
joking with-
variations still.
Yeah,
But
there's
it
variation.
still
I
holds
just mean
together.
like you don't even have to play the melody of the theme
Oh,
to
yeah.
hint at the theme.
For sure.
Like which isn't very often, you know, or that's not super as common as you with many themes that you might hear. I was joking. I was trying to place where else I had heard this like theme / chord progression for the last 4 weeks. I was like, I've heard this somewhere. I've heard a similar thematic idea somewhere in media somewhere, and I figured it out, everybody, this week. Okay. Grand Theft Auto 5. I just posted it in the chat. I'll post it on the video later. It's like pretty much the Andor theme. The menu music, the loading music for when you're playing Grand Theft Auto 5 is essentially the Andor theme. Which it's kind of wild, actually. So I encourage anyone to go to this link and hear for yourself that basically the music when you're about to, you know, to do some debaucherous acts on a virtual Los Angeles is pretty similar to my favorite Star Wars
I mean,
show
we're
so
about
far.
to in Andor do some criminal acts and
Yeah,
steal
that's
some
true.
stuff.
Well,
That
right
is
after,
true, right? Yeah.
right after watching Andor, I was like on some YouTube video, and it also had it was one of those like documentary style videos that kind of had dark and gritty music, and it sounded a lot like
Yes.
Andor as well. And so it did lead me to think like, yeah, I mean, the music in Andor is not melodically or harmonically, it's not unique at all.
Sure, it's pretty. You hear it a lot of places, you know.
Yeah, nothing individually about like the music is terribly unique.
Right.
But what I like about the score is that it's very tasteful. Like it's it feels like discerning. Like there's not music everywhere. There's like lots of space where there's not music, and where there is music, I feel like it is at appropriate. I feel like it's at appropriate times, and I feel like it cuts away or like becomes less active when people are talking, and so it doesn't interrupt my viewing experience. Like it works with the viewing experience, and so that's way more important to me than like having
The
something
theme being a big deal.
having a
theme
theme
here,
that's
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so I
Well,
think
that's why John Williams' scores are like they're like a character in and of itself, you know,
Yeah.
into the plot. Like the themes of the music are like almost I mean, John Williams does a great job at setting atmosphere and not distracting from the play, but his themes are just so like the leitmotifs are so strong in those scores in terms of like that's in some ways their focus. It's very that space opera aesthetic is very different than the way that this show is scored. You know, like the leitmotifs is not seemingly the way that that leads this score. In fact, the Andor theme doesn't seem to really be the Cassian Andor theme as much as it's the as much as it's kind of
The show.
the show's theme in some ways.
Yeah.
Because it appears so often when Cassian isn't not exactly related to what's going on, you know?
I don't know if I.
What do you mean?
Well, yes and
I
no.
feel
Like,
like
yes, I think it is like a show theme, but like also it did kick in 1, 2, 3, 4. It kicked in 6 times this episode from what I counted, and it was always sort of like either the title, the credits, and then sort of after a Cassian moment. For example, after that moment where he's like,
Yeah.
I'm going to pilot this thing, like you don't know what you're doing. It kicked in. And then it kicked in after he admits that he's being paid to be there. And then it kicks in like, in some other part that's more transition. Like it
Well, he
is-
definitely gets the strongest and most exact iterations of it for sure. But I just mean like I said with the chord changes. The chord changes are found everywhere throughout these episodes, and so I guess what I mean is like it's kind of it's a blurry line. It's a blurry line between when it's specifically alluding to him and when it's kind of. In some ways, it's kind of like it's kind of showing what some people have wondered, like, how is this how is this the Andor show when there's so many other players and bigger things happening here? Like, is he really the main focus of the show? We've got like Mon Mothma story, we've got everything, but it's kind of like it is all intertwined, and you're finding that like the show is kind of painting the story of like, watch how Cassian Andor gets sucked into this whole world, and becomes an integral part of it. And becomes such an important figure in this whole rebellion. So in some ways, the music doing exactly that is kind of an interesting thing. So
It's funny that you say that because I actually sometimes forget that his name is Andor at the end, and I've always Andor in my head sounds like a planet or a system.
Yeah, Andor in my head's
kind
just
of
the
a
name of the
thing.
show.
It's the name of the show. I
the
always
forest
forget
moon
that,
of
but-
Andor.
Yeah, exactly. It's not the Andor show; it's the Andor show. But yeah, I get what you're. I like what you said. Going back a little bit, Xanthe, and like, it's not a very. The music is not distracting. I think it's also has a lot to do with like where it's being placed and how it's being mixed into the scene is so effective. Like this episode and the last episode, we all kind of turned to each other before the show and like there wasn't a whole lot of music, yet we find all these amazing like subtle intricacies in what's happening. So it's so effective and so simple. An example of this that I loved in this scene. Usually, I want the music a little. I want to be able to hear the music, not overshadow the dialogue and all things like that. But I want to hear what's going on. But one of the places that it was really scored super quiet was the breakfast, Mon Mothma's breakfast with her daughter and her husband, where we kind of get this family thing problems going on, where it looks like the husband is kind of influencing the daughter to think that the mom is just, Mon Mothma is just this like senator who's putting on a show. Oh, look, I have a daughter. Oh, look, I'm involved in my daughter's life and stuff. But throughout that entire scene, there's just a low like C drone kind of just happening until it finally becomes almost a string quartet or just like some orchestra chords that remind me. I couldn't quite figure out the chords because it was so low and soft. It's felt very like classical to me, like stereotypically classical minor progression in a way, like I don't know, kind of a thing. Just a very like standard cadence, but it was so low and so effective, and it built a little at the end, but when she was like, that's so hurtful, that's so things, but the chords come in these like really interesting moments. It's all about you. First chord appears, it's so hurtful. Something else appears, and it's like, I don't know, I wouldn't have wanted that to overshadow anything. I think the volume of it was really perfect in a way, in like relation to some of the stuff we talked about in Solo, where we were like, I can't hear the music at all.
Yeah.
Well, purposeful and it's subtle and it doesn't like hit you in the face with how you're supposed to feel in that moment. It kind of carries you there in a little way, right? It's like the scene pushes the boat, and then the music is the boat, right? That brings you to be like, to kind of honestly see the kind of just that. I feel like what I like about that is you get to see the personally tragic situation that Mon Mothma is in. I mean, there's like the bigger tragic situation, which is like she is a senator in essentially during a political time where the Senate is being a senator means less and less. And she can do less and less because, even by the time A New Hope happens, they say, we've dissolved the Senate, right? And they literally get rid of the Senate, right? And so we know that just on paper that her situation is tragic, where she's a good person trying to do good as a senator during a time in which that is futile. And on top of that, we know that that eventually pushes her to to support and eventually lead the rebellion, right? So we know that on paper her story is tragic, but these little windows into her personal life, her family life, underscore the true tragedy, the true picture of tragedy that's going on here. That whole dynamic is also invading her family life. She has somewhat estranged daughter and a husband who is absolutely not on board and not understanding. And so you get to see that all play out in this scene, and then the music really kind of just brings you there, where you're like, damn, Mon Mothma, not looking good for you right now, right? It's I feel for you. You really start to get a human connection to this character. Not often we get that, right?
Yeah.
In these types of characters in Star Wars. So
I felt like not only were we seeing her, the extension of her personal quote tragedy, her bad situation at home, it also shows that she is not. It shows a side that she's not perfect. She might not be a great mother.
Sure.
I was sort of taking the daughter's side on, not side, but I was sort of not. I want to know what more. I wanted to know more. That dialogue was so great because she said just enough to make me want to know more about what do you mean to show you're involved? And it's all about you. It sounded like that was not just the first time that the daughter has thought that, or that they've had that conversation or something. It's something clearly there. Something is. She's a kid, and she doesn't want her mom to take her somewhere. So
specifically a teenagers, especially.
Yeah, and so it's not just. What is Mon Mothma not providing at home?
Right.
Or also, of course, her father is obviously part of this equation as well. But it kind of shows that I don't know, something in the Leia books that I think I mentioned a couple weeks ago as well, is that even though we love the Organas are great, and I think that they were great parents to Leia, they were quite absent when they were forming the rebellion, and Leia did feel pretty alienated from her family for a little period of time, she loved her parents and stuff, but they weren't really giving her time to talk to her and stuff like that. And so Mon Mothma might be in not the same situation, but also in a situation where we know that she has good intentions, that she's trying to do the right thing, but she can't be everything for everyone. So she might really not. She might not be killing it as a mother right now.
And even if that's happening too, she also has no support from her spouse to even. Perhaps I'm not saying this is to support her in a way of saying, look, your mom is blah 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 blah. She's here for you. She wants to spend. You should spend time with her, instead of yeah, you're right. Your mom sucks.
Yeah.
I married her. We should.
Yeah.
Not that it was that exact conversation, but this kind of no, I'm on your side. I think your mom's doing this to show.
Yeah, they're not
off
a
to-
team.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's the worst, as I said last
Yeah,
week.
they're trying to. That's kind of a thing. And then that's even shown even farther with the car ride after their dinner or event that they went to. Kind of a thing. You get
Can we
that
pause real quick,
snarky-
Justin?
Yeah.
Okay, real quick. The dinner, is that the dinner that they're coming from that we talked about last week, or has that not
I
happened?
think it was a different dinner. I think the dinner already
something
happened.
else.
The dinner already happened? So we're not
Yeah.
going to see
Well,
the
the-
dinner.
I don't think so.
But they keep also mentioning. There's so many dinners. There's
Yeah. So the
there's
dinner.
a lot of dinners going on.
I think
The dinner that they
already
were
happened.
referring, but that seemed to be a dinner that they were about to host. Yeah,
Yeah,
at their
so I
own
think-
home, right?
correct.
And that scene is where they were coming
Back from a different
from
dinner, I assume.
from someone else's house, and they were going home. Yeah.
That's what I assume. I don't know
so,
for sure.
So that dinner, I think cannot be the one that they're alluding to. But that doesn't mean the dinner hasn't happened
The
yet,
dinner.
right?
No, the dinner has happened. It
Are
must
you
have.
sure?
It feels like it. It really feels like it. And it sucks because I really wanted to see this dinner, but it. Feels
I don't
like,
know,
was
dude.
thinking
I don't
was
know if
thinking
it's
the same
happened yet.
Well, and then they keep mentioning a dinner on, there's a engineer coming to Aldari, and they're like, oh, the dinner tonight or something. There's some other meal mentioned, or something like that. I really hope we get to see that, or
Yes.
maybe we just didn't.
Well,
Maybe we didn't.
I hope you did.
No,
sorry.
I think in the timeline, if we're really thinking about it, the dinner's over. We didn't
Yeah.
get to see this dinner.
That's what I think.
It
What
just
do you all
happened.
think in
Was
the
this
chat? Has the dinner already happened? I think
Has
the
the
dinner.
dinner
I think it
happened?
was
I think the dinner has
Okay, well,
happened.
yeah. Anyways, what I did want to point out though about this this car ride scene, I am loving. Obviously, I'm a bit of a fan of synthesizers. Obviously, I am loving the amount of synthesizers we're actually getting in this show, and what they're doing. Because as that scene transitions from the outside car to the inside car, yeah, there's strings, there's some pizzicato things happening, but there's just these two rumbling synth tones that I could not not try to recreate. As it's coming through, you get this like. It's just two notes. It feels like, and then you don't really get to hear it. I don't think ever again, kind of a thing. But as it's just going, it's just.
Ooh,
I thought it was a nice moment.
it's so
Kind of brooding
lit.
too.
And more of the
know.
wobble.
More of that wobble. This
It's so
wobbly.
Blade Runner, dude.
I know, right?
really
It looked like kind of like Blade Runner.
It really does. A question for you: how do you think that the sky traffic in Coruscant works? Where apparently, like, they have express lanes.
I've been
Like,
trying
what
to
does that
figure
mean?
this out. I've been trying to.
How
Figure
do they
this out
navigate
since
where the
episode
lanes
2.
are?
There's got to be a navigation. There's got to be like a Siri or something in everybody's car that's like keeping them on track. Because you could also
Right.
just peel around a corner and just land where you want to land without any fear
Right.
of another.
That must be like a
spacecraft
traffic
coming
infraction,
through.
right? That
So
would be
what's
like
the
that'd be the equivalent of like going up a one-way, I guess, right? It was like going
guess.
off of their designated sky lanes that you can't see.
Well, it's like in Attack of the Clones where Obi-Wan's like, no, take the expressway or take the thing, and it's just this like tunnel through the middle of this building to get you to the other side of the
Yeah.
building that you could have
Yeah.
flown over or around. But I mean, I'm not complaining. I like seeing this stuff. It's cool. But yeah, what are the rules on speeder bikes, and how does space traffic work? How does Coruscant traffic work?
Yeah, it reminds me of trying to fly or shoot drone footage. If anybody has ever done that before, and
Nope.
trying to figure out where it's allowed to fly those things, because it's like incredibly nebulous no matter where you go. Of like, what are the laws and why? Like, there's like rules that the FAA has. Anyway, it's already the little sky laws that we have on this planet are already confused. I can't imagine what Coruscant is like. So,
Yeah, Jonah. I would imagine sky traffic is way more complicated. Same, for sure.
Oh, Michael's got something. Isn't the case?
Oh,
The
isn't
fast
it
routes
the
are further up and slow routes are further down. I like that. I don't know if that is the case, but I
that
like
would
that
make a lot of
idea.
sense.
Yeah, it would make sense.
The
Wouldn't it?
higher up you are,
Yeah,
the
because
faster you
I mean,
can
just
go.
like sheer amount of like you go away from a what do you call it, a sphere. It's gonna, I imagine it would be faster for you to.
I
be
imagine that would
higher.
take. Well, I would imagine it would take longer for you to. Or the
Yeah, that's
distance
Go
would be
faster, it'd
longer.
about the same time. You'd take about the.
But
Yeah, it
you'd
would
be
be a long.
faster.
Yeah, you're right. It's the
Gotta move
inverse,
faster.
but I guess you can go faster when
Yeah,
there's less
that makes sense.
obstacles.
And I bet the expressway is like you have to pay for that. You know, a special
Yeah,
sticker.
you have to have
Fast
like your
track.
it's like being on the 110, right? In what do you call it with the expressway? Is that the 110 or is that the 10 that has the
Is it the fast track or the
fast track, the fast lane, right?
You get the
73.
little the thing in your car that like
Yeah.
detects as you go through.
Yeah, I've never had one, but
Me neither.
sounds nice. Just beware of the macra at the bottom. What's that?
Macaroni and cheese. There's a bunch of
Macaron.
Oh my
I don't know what
god.
macra is.
It's so
Hey, Alfie.
Just
Alf,
beware of the macaroni and cheese
Go-
at the bottom.
Yeah, what is
Okay.
that? What's the macra? What's a macra?
I don't
Is that a
know.
Star Wars thing we should all know?
I know. I'm like, ooh. I hope it's a blue macaroni and cheese just pit.
Yeah. I think
Macaroni
so.
and blue cheese.
There you go. There you go. So, yes, the Mothmas. Okay, so I like how we're seeing both the Mothma family and then we're seeing like Cyril's little family, including
Yes.
Uncle Gorn and
Uncle Harlow.
sorry, Uncle Harlow.
Uncle
and,
Harlow.
Yeah, and all these like
Yeah,
family
what do you think
dynamics.
Uncle Harlow looks like?
I really want to meet Uncle. I hope it's some like it. I don't know. I really want to meet Uncle Harlow for some reason.
Yeah, me too.
And then of course, Doctor Who reference. Oh, shows we don't. I don't know anything about Doctor Who, and then I just showed myself there.
Wait, Doctor Who?
Yeah,
Who
That's
are
it.
you talking about?
The doctor.
Macra. I
Who's
think
on
Macra
first?
is a Doctor Who thing.
Talk about
Giant
the doctor.
crabs, Jonah says. Okay, so it is kind of like the macaroni and cheese thing.
Yeah, but crab.
Crabs or like macra? All right, we're
Sorta.
getting a little.
Let's cheese.
Anyway,
Let's choose. Anyways,
okay, so I have a little new melody that came up this episode to play.
Do you want to quiz
Yes.
us and see if we can figure out where it's from?
Okay, sure. Let's see.
Quiz the chat too.
Yes. Sorry, hasn't started yet. Okay, here we go. Okay. I need a. Okay, imagine a steady beat. Boom, boom, boom. No, just on one. Yeah, just on the quarters. Two. Boom. Two. 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 Came up at least 3 times. Yeah, Justin has it.
damn, I was gonna play that one, but yes, okay.
That's
I know what it
okay.
is, so I won't answer.
All right, chat. What do we think? Where does this happen?
I like this whole sequence.
Well, it happens a few
Musically.
times, but I think I know which.
Mhm.
But the first time, yeah,
Name one.
that plays in. Yes, Jonah, correct.
No.
That plays in 3 places if I remember correctly. That's what I counted as well. Name one. Justin, you're talking about the first time, right?
I don't know. I only noticed it during one like longer sequence.
Okay,
so
that's
maybe
probably that. Yeah,
yeah,
the first time was
I-
the longest one.
Gotcha.
Interesting.
All right, so that might be probably the first time.
Yeah.
Should I? That's we get this when Lieutenant Gorn is telling them to clean up the ruins from the target practice, and
Yep.
there's this which I want to come back to that scene because there's some percussion stuff that if James didn't catch it, I want validation that I heard something cool.
Well, let's talk about it. So okay, so that the TIE fighter scene is the first. The TIE fighter scene as well. Very briefly, the other one is I think it's some other time when Gorn is talking to Imperial people. One of those, but it seems to be like I wrote down in my notes surveillance theme. I don't know, like it kind of. It happens definitely Imperial related and definitely like danger related or like secret ops related. And yeah, it is accompanied by these like drums. I don't know what to call them. They're probably, I don't know what to call them, but like war drums or something like.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I kind of what first caught me about that scene were these military rudiment kind of drum kind of sounding things. And what was fun for my ears that I think I caught was that these military drums appear in a few places. And the two I'm really thinking about are when, before we get to this scene, where he's telling the soldiers to clean up the ruins from their target practice, we're watching Clem learn the plan, which is kind of militaristic. They're going to impersonate soldiers, and you get this thum, papa-thum, kind of, a military-esque march.
I'll tell you exactly what the rhythm is, okay?
Yeah.
So, and it happens, it's the same rhythm every time it happens.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's basically this rhythm, Xanthe, you can share this with everybody, okay?
Okay.
This is like the drum rhythm from this episode. Okay, I'm gonna text it to you real quick. But yeah, keep going, Justin, and I'll send the rhythm over.
So what was cool? So once we see the rhythm, I can sing it correctly. But they sound like they're on like toms, so it's hard sticks on toms, which is cool. And then the moment we switch to the scene with Lieutenant Gorn, same music, same rhythm, but it sounds like they switched to brushes on the same drum kind of a thing. It gives it a more like a snare sound, like a traditional military drum kind of a thing, or marching snare kind of a feel, but I don't think it was a real snare drum.
You're talking about when they're at the base?
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so when it becomes, as the scene changes from people learning how to pretend to be Imperials to actual Imperial soldiers being chewed out kind of a thing.
That's cool.
Same rhythm.
Oh yeah, that is cool.
More militaristic because of brushes in a way, kind of a thing, just by adding brushes on the same drum.
Yeah, let me tell you real quick. So it starts out. It's like on. It's a snare drum. It's just at the. It's like at the rim of a snare drum, and then essentially it just adds toms. So it's like doubles it up on toms later. So it starts on the rim of a snare drum, and then it goes to the full head sound, which is interesting.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's cool how the rhythm transitioned us from the two different sides of this coin, the fake ones and the real ones.
Yeah, and having the sound like change.
And having the sound, exactly.
Like maybe something a bit more like false to something like, no, this is what a military sounds like, kind of a thing.
Yeah, it's like keeping something. It's like playing Uno, and like one thing stays the same and the other thing changes. Or it's like in scene transitions where, like, I don't know, you zoom in on someone's door and you will go through the door on the other person. I don't know. Something like that.
Yeah.
Do.
Good percussive analysis, Justin.
Yeah. Yeah. In general, like the percussion in this episode, not just this episode, but definitely heard it in this episode, felt very preparing for war in general. Like it was very militaristic in many different ways, and including, like, I think when the TIE fighter flies overhead to intimidate them, we hear that sort of like that classic like sample library drum sound, to, like that's, when trailers do that. And I remember, like, I didn't mind it because it's not like that's littered throughout the whole series, It was like for that time. You see, so it was like I thought it was very tasteful use of it for a specific moment. And so, what did you think? What did you all think of that? Sample library drums?
Big epic drum sounds.
Sounds like James listening
like
to
that.
it. I just mean like when, like when you're watching a trailer or watching certain movies and they really lean heavily on those impact drum, like heaviosity samples, and it sounds like
cinematic impact drum.
Exactly. Cinematic impact drums, whatever. And it sounds like, machine gun. It sounds like people are firing. It's like,
just
like that's what it sounds like the whole, you're being shot at the whole movie. The only time I remember like really, really hearing that kind of like heavy-handed pounding of heavy drums was when the TIE fighter was flying over. And so I think it was like appropriate. And I think it had impact there because it's not like they don't use that just for like any time there's tension. Like they don't it's not overused in the rest of the score at all.
For sure. Yeah, I'm just so used to hearing that type of drum sound. It's like a it's a pervasive drum timbre. I think like lots of people, it's like lots of people just want that sound.
Yeah.
So often, and oftentimes, I'll be playing. It's interesting to me because oftentimes when I'm playing instruments from like West Africa, Ewe drums, from Ghana, etc., and I'm playing it for a project or something like that, a lot of people have that sound of drums in their mind of what they actually want it to sound, but that's actually not how West African drums sound like. And a lot of people also think like taiko drums sound like that. They don't.
Yeah.
Right.
So a lot of the public consciousness, they think that like the big drums that you see, and oftentimes, and the reason why is because when you watch a movie and someone's playing a big drum like that, they're using these like type of sample sounds, but that's like not what the drums actually sound like. They have like more overtones, or it's like a higher pitched drum or something. So I find that this is like the big boomy cinematic drum sound that is like everywhere. Like it's everywhere.
It's like a boom mixed with like a hit, like just a noisy hit.
And that's so funny that you mentioned that, James, because I've had that exact thing happen to me once, where someone asked me to put a taiko drum in something. And when I did, they said, this isn't what I wanted. I said, you asked for this. And they said, but no, what I really meant was, and they showed me a movie trailer or something like that. And it's like, oh, okay, no. So you wanted the big, it's a little different kind of, which is fine because, it's what we're kind of almost conditioned to expect these big drums to sound like sometimes. I like the big drum thing is like, as a composer for me, it's like, sure, I don't know how I feel about them ever. When I hear them, it's like I'm sorry. For me personally, it's a very easy, lazy move.
For sure.
It's instant gratification. It sounds big and cool. You can throw it on every cut in a trailer, every scene. You need to get from point A to point B in some epic way. It's
so
just
so you do know how you feel about it.
I do know how I feel about it. At the same time, I admit that it's awesome and effective, and I like big drums.
Yeah.
I love the sound. It's just it's so used. It's so used.
The less seriously I intend to take a piece of media, the less bothered I am by it. You know what I mean? Like like in silly movies, I don't mind at all. Like if I go see a Marvel movie, sorry, every Marvel fans, I do not mind hearing that all over the score because that's what I'm signing up for.
Because you're like, it's a silly
I'm
movie.
expecting it. Yeah, exactly. You just, it's what you're gonna get. It's
so
fine.
you know what I mean? So, but when I hear it, I don't want to create controversy on your channel, Xanthe, so I won't name particular movies, but I've heard that sound in some movies I've seen recently that really bothered me, and because they were used in ways that I feel like were inauthentic to what they were trying to portray. And I actually talked to another friend of mine who is also a drum enthusiast, and we both kind of were like, why did they use those stupid drum sounds when they should have used these drum sounds? Anyway, but that's just us being nerds, and also,
I feel like it's almost like anytime you see a drum on the screen, like more than 5, that's the sound. It doesn't matter what the drum is. It doesn't matter if it's a snare drum, a kettle drum, a skinhead drum. That's the sound you're gonna hear.
That's the sound you're gonna get.
So you're talking about like cases where you're seeing an actual instrument on screen as well, which is going to be rare.
Well, yes.
Yeah, right. Which is going to be
not necessarily. Sometimes when I'm hearing what's, I think I kind of alluded to it. For one thing, in they're all over Black Panther, right?
Yes.
And the drums that they're at. I mean, there's also lots of like actual recordings of West African drumming in that score, but there's lots and lots of those cinematic drums throughout that score. And I'm not particularly bothered by that score, in terms of like its authenticity or whatever, because it's kind of like a.
Well, I don't think it's trying to be fully authentic. I think it's
Right,
supposed to
I
be a
guess what
mixture
I'm
of
saying.
cinematic and that anyway.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, but there's like, I would say, sometimes, so it's not necessarily like representing the sounds on the screen, but it's like what the sounds that it's alluding to sometimes. But also sometimes it's just like it undercuts the emotion sometimes when it's like when you're supposed to take that sound seriously, and it sounds cheesy to me sometimes.
I'm talking, so like my critique of it is purely from not even aside from those questions, just hearing it in a movie that has nothing to do with drums, but you're just part of the score. I usually detest it. I can't stand it. It's like my pet. It's like my pet peeve. I can't help it.
It's kind of like what you've said about like reharmonizing themes for movie trailers, right? Right.
That too, and adding those drums on top of it is always how it works.
Yeah.
And I just hate it. I usually hate it.
It's the movie trailer formula, right? You put it on a creepy piano with big drums. Right. You reharmonize the tune.
Something.
Yep. It's always a piano. Doom doom doom. Doom doom.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Or it's like the one that I always think of is when they came out with Jurassic World.
Yeah.
Jurassic World, the trailer, it was just
So secrets theme.
The whole
Everybody,
trailer was just that and drums.
It's maybe the worst one I've heard yet, but I guess it's part of the tongue-in-cheekness of it. It was the new Mario trailer.
Haven't heard it.
I couldn't believe that they did this.
I haven't seen it yet.
They did that. They did like basically like.
I'm scared.
It was like.
do.
You know what I mean? They basically did that at the end of the trailer. I couldn't believe it. I was like, really? They actually did that?
They also did that like in the Mulan trailer, the live action Mulan trailer with reflection.
They did.
You know what this reminds me of?
What?
This is kind of the like anytime every December we get some new song on the radio, a new cover, and it's like they'll be like, all I want for Christmas is you. Right? And they'll just throw that at the end.
For the record, this is going into the realm of things that I don't loathe as vehemently as those drums. I don't. These things
but it's
are,
all in the same family, right? They're all in the kind of.
They are. Yeah. There's a Venn diagram for sure. Of these happening, but the drums in particular,
I would love somebody to like really put in the work and make a Spotify playlist of Christmas songs that end with a Jingle Bell quote at the end. Like I would love to see just how ubiquitous this is, pervasive, I should say. It is, right? Anyway.
So yeah, like Justin, it's not that I always hate these drums. I don't, because I also have a primal instinct that goes like, oh, in the drums, like it washes over me. And if I haven't been already desensitized by the score, then it can work. So it's kind of almost about the dose of it. You have to earn your time. Those drums have to earn their time. Otherwise, it's like a Venus flytrap. If you can't resist making one of the things close, you have to wait a whole another day or two before it opens again. And by the way, you shouldn't do that to your Venus flytraps.
Yeah, and it's funny too because a lot of times these big drums are accompanied by big low synth hit or big orchestra one note hit from everybody that just it's got that kind of a thing with the synth kind of a thing. I think the movie Battleship. I think someone counted the number of hits, like big drum orchestra synth hit things all at the same time, and it was like broke a record or something like that. I'd have to look it up again, but it was pretty.
I never saw that movie.
It was well noted that it not only did that, but they sampled an MRI machine for the whole score, which was an interesting choice.
Okay, let's go back to
Anyways.
Andor.
Star Wars.
So okay, do we all love Nemec?
I love
Nemec.
them so much that I have no idea who you're talking about.
The one writing the manifesto.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
is that
relate
is
to
that
him.
his name?
I
Is Nemec?
relate
Yeah.
to him.
Okay.
I
I love him.
the pace of repression outstrips our ability to understand it. Surprise from above is never as shocking as one from below. I love Nemec.
Yeah.
I love the fact also that when they're getting ready for like to leave and they're burning the evidence of his thing, everyone looks so somber and sad for what they're about to do. But I felt for him, it was sad that his model was burning, and he had to watch his model that he loved and cared for,
Yeah.
be destroyed. I was like, I love this this character so much. I've never related.
He's like the artist in the group, right? He's
Yeah.
like, somebody's got to be the one that, designs the military models, right? And you have some passionate manifesto writing artist in your group. That's the guy, right?
Right. And he
So,
has those two things where he's, holds up the book and holds up the other thing, is drawing a connection between the astral, whatever, navigator thingy thing. I don't know what it's called, but it looked, I heard.
And his love of old technology, just like, look, you can do this, you can do that. That's
Yeah.
also me in a nutshell. I love that character.
And
yeah,
just
I really
like-
like him. Now I'm glad you said his name because I actually didn't clock his name,
Nemec.
so I'm glad. Nemec, got it. Okay.
And his little hat. Nemec's little hat.
Yeah. Yes. I mean,
I
every
like-
revolutionary has to have a hat, So,
Or good,
Something
good
that someone I think
or some
probably
cool
Enders.
tattoos. What is it? Skeen? Skeeb? What's
Skeen.
his name? Skeen? The one with the tattoos. The less stressful
Yeah.
character. I kind of like where his story as well, in a way. What did Andor say? Crate head?
Yeah,
Is that
there's
a
Crate
prison?
Head. There's By the Hand.
By the hand. Is that a prison kind
That's
of?
Yeah, I
interesting.
think.
I'm
Yeah, I think they
guessing?
were prison things.
Crate, like a dragon head, There's,
or crate head.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like-
I like.
There was that
his,
symbol, you see. That one I think
yeah.
was By the Hand. But okay, Ender, I think it was Ender that said this on Discord that I want to read. Let's see, where's the channel? Andor. Okay. He said, too many windows open. Something that he liked. Okay, I like that this show says that fascism is bad for specific reasons and not merely because it's evil, but showing the specific results and effects of what fascism does: displacement, occupation, state terrorism. And I think that's an amazing point because Star Wars is full of stories that are sort of like bad guys, good guys, and it's very extreme. Like, we're seeing such extreme atrocities that it's like, of course, those are the bad guys. But here, just like Nemec's little gems, dropping them everywhere. And not only Nemec, but like all of their stories, really. Like, just the pace of oppression, like, so he was like, so much is happening. It's like easy to sort of, miss it because there's so much happening all at once. And just that line is sticking with me. The pace of repression outstrips our ability to understand it. So it's like so much bad stuff is happening. Like, we can't even grasp it anymore. And I feel like that's a really it's a big addition to the Star Wars universe, I guess. At least, especially on screen, the nuance of the politics of the Empire, or at least the politics of the Resistance, the rebellion, what they're fighting up against, which is not just
Yes.
the Emperor.
Yeah.
It's like they're taking away the centuries of pepper trees. They're like doing all of this stuff.
Yeah, it's nice to see that ripple out. I mean, you get a little, you get a very broad paintbrush version of that in Revenge of the Sith, in terms of like the way that the Empire uses the false flag, occurrence of the Jedi and using that to basically accelerate sweeping fascism across the galaxy. You get to see how that, like how some type of major event, like the Emperor being attacked by Yoda, right, could be used to be like, it's kind of similar to ways that like homeland security threats have caused sweeping, pervasive
Like Islamophobia and race.
overreach.
Yeah.
Exactly. Government overreach. So you get to see that happen on a very like what's the word, like obvious way, in broad sweeping way, and simplified way in Revenge of the Sith. But it's nice to see these like really nuanced examples, like you said, being shown, and how that affects individual people and individual groups of people throughout the galaxy.
And how there are just so many things. It's not just one thing. It's easy to miss if you just think of it as one thing. It's like the empire, or this fascism really is, so much more pervasive and everywhere, and it's good stuff.
It's a bad thing, and I also think that the broad strokes that the original movies paint, and I'm not criticizing them for doing that. I think those movies were made with a very, a very like, what's the word, simplified delivery method, and
On purpose,
for real reasons. It's more like, but you can see with the type of conversations that always come up when newer Star Wars kind of really hits home some of the direct and explicit political messaging that embodies the actual spirit of the originals. You'll get all these people are like, why is Star Wars political now? But it's, and folks that kind of get it are like, it's kind of always been political, don't you understand? But the reason why that is, I think, happening is that it's never painted such a specific picture in the way that it has,
Because I think
recently.
Because Star Wars has always been politically inspired, but I think on screen at first it wasn't. It certainly wasn't. Like, I understand when people are say Star Wars isn't political, because it's on screen we're not being confronted with like the specifics of the ideologies, and so now it's like we can't look away in Andor.
Right.
They're showing us.
Yeah.
And I'm excited.
And it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. How about that interesting, I feel like there's just so many cool things. So like, how about the Imperial soldiers being like, we want to go
see the eye.
They're in
yeah.
They like want to, and that's so realistic. Like, they're in some ways like the soldiers are also just kind of like regular people being swept up in this fascist military government, but they're kind of normal people that are encamped, stationed at this thing.
Yeah, doing a job.
We want to go see the
eye.
see the eye, right? It
And I love
again
how the
reminds me a lot of those surfing American soldiers in Apocalypse Now. The Imperial oppressive force, but it's still made up of regular people that are being stationed by their oppressive government. Sorry, am I being too anti-American on this with the stream today?
No.
Okay, I don't know how far I want to go with that, but yeah, it's kind of very similar to those types of scenes where it's like there's still the soldiers that are part of this war machine are still like individual normal people that are like have they're not all programmed robots. They're not clones, right? They're not like they're not the clones, right? So.
And I like how it's over some mundane thing, like the thing isn't painted. I want to see them like with paintbrushes, or rollers, doing this work kind of thing. Why you're in trouble. Yeah. Going like trying to. He's got here.
Justin, you've gone droid.
Bix. What about? We have a B2. A B2.
Yeah, Justin has gone to the droid side.
Sorry, Justin.
I think he's
I wanted to
gonna,
also. Yeah, reconnect.
He'll probably reconnect.
But I was gonna bring up, like, we haven't seen a single stormtrooper in this show yet.
True.
It's 5 episodes in, we haven't seen a single stormtrooper.
That's a good point. And we know that they exist. So
And we imagine that the person flying that TIE fighter had the stormtrooper, TIE trooper helmet on, I imagine. So I wonder what do you think the reasoning is for that?
interesting. I wonder what the in-universe reason is for that. I guess maybe they weren't as everywhere as I expected. It seems like even the clone troopers were like everywhere though.
Well, we haven't really seen like any the Imperial forces haven't. There hasn't been a scene in which it would make kind of sense to see stormtroopers yet. Like definitely not on Ferrix yet. I guess maybe.
I don't know, because aren't stormtroopers just like everywhere, just for whatever, patrolling and whatever?
You'd imagine,
anything?
right? But they're only starting to occupy the
True.
Ferrix, right? So we'll probably see them pretty soon, and maybe they're holding them off because they want to show us like within And you know what that means, Jonah? That could only mean one thing: invasion at Justin's house.
Okay, he's joining again. Here we go.
Okay.
Ju-
I like how he's like.
He's just.
Oh man, it's been happening
Sorry,
to me. What did I
Justin.
miss? What did I miss?
We were
We're
talking
talking about
there's
how
no
come
stormtroopers.
there's no
the-
stormtroopers yet in the whole show yet.
Huh? Oh,
That's what
You're
I
right.
said. Huh.
you're right. I just didn't even think about that. You're right. Everyone's just been in uniforms, even on the planet, even on.
We only see the
Everyone's
Imperials
no
or the
stormtroopers.
officers. I mean,
That's
Right.
so weird. That's so weird.
Yeah, what's up with that?
kind of.
I don't know.
I'm watching. Well, there's like when they're at the base, they're like in like cadet-looking uniforms, like the cadets that are asking for like, hey, can we go see the Eye? They're like not in stormtrooper uniforms. They're in these like. I don't know what you would call those uniforms. Maybe someone that knows more about the military could tell me what
Maybe-
rank that would be. But they're like in kind of, maybe not cadets or whatever. I don't know. They're like in regular. Maybe
Yeah,
the
they're
fact that
not,
they're not out fighting. They're like at the base means that they're not in those uniforms. And then I'm looking now at the. I'm going over to the scene where they're on Ferrix, the other triangle scene. And I'm looking around, and it's really just those two characters that are there, and then the people that live on Ferrix. So,
Yeah.
So I don't like. They just haven't brought in the stormtroopers yet. Oh wait, there's like a marching group of people that are also not stormtroopers.
Yeah, because that's the thing. We're seeing marching groups, and they're going to impersonate marching groups. And as we know from A New Hope and many other movies, it's easier to disguise yourself as an Imperial when you can just steal stormtrooper armor and do that. But it seems like they're not even going to do that. They're going to have their
Yeah.
faces out and everything.
Yeah. That's interesting. And yeah, I'm Gary 24 fan. I'm not bothered by it either. I'm
Yeah,
almost
not
just
bothered by it.
curious.
Just
I'm,
curious,
Like
yeah.
curious about it. In fact, here's the thing. I think LFG in the chat had said like maybe it's kind of like the TIE fighters. They're making them into these big scary forces. Maybe the stormtroopers are going to be like maybe
Yeah.
they're going to get their moment in this show where they're going to
No, I did that. I
Xanthe,
pressed
what are you
something
doing?
on my keyboard, and Justin popped up, and I was like,
That's the make Justin bigger
Yeah.
button.
I pressed the
you
number
pressed the- you
4,
pressed
and it
the-
did that.
just
I
put
just
your-
did it again.
No, just
Pressed
like
the
two
number
of me.
4, and I
Hello.
don't know why it did that.
No.
Anyway, but yeah.
Anyway, so
Great
yeah,
point.
maybe we're gonna get some really intimidating moment with the stormtroopers in this show. You know?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, and maybe they're
Ooh.
not just always in their full uniform or something. Like maybe there's on and off days.
How cool would that be if we see that's
Them
what
suiting
they show
up?
the them
They're
suiting
suiting
up,
up.
and then it's
Oh,
like
that's funny.
bam, boom.
Okay.
We get the
Anyway.
we get the
I think we have to say that every
Boba
episode.
Fett sound.
Every so.
Yeah. They might be shown as competent soldiers.
Maybe. Did anybody notice? I'm sorry, I'm bringing it back to music for a second.
How dare you?
How dare I? Did anybody notice, or maybe I'm just crazy, But in the scene that we were just talking about, where they want us, the cadets are like, oh, but we want to go up in the thing, and Goran's like, well, you got to paint the thing, blah blah blah. As he's walking down the stairs, like we've established, I think in our first episode of the first 3, that this like wavy synth thing is like, not only just the synth during the Andor theme, but like the wavy tuniness is kind of like a thing for the score.
For sure.
It's like a motif that's not a motif.
Yeah,
but it is a
like
motif,
the
kind of a thing. So as he's here's my conspiracy theory. Yeah, it's the
Man, that's really the of the show.
it's the hut of the show. It's the the flute kind of a thing, To this day, I have never seen a meta musical reference in a show like that. Where everybody go rewatch that Boba Fett, when we cover Book of Boba Fett, and we talk about how hearing the Mando theme, but not seeing Mando, but knowing it's Mando, but not knowing it's Mando, but all at the same time.
But they're like
dropping musical cameos. That's what it was, a musical cameo.
Yeah.
Anyways, I had speaking of musical cameos, in this scene, I swear, go back and listen. Everyone can go back and listen. As he's walking down the stairs, we hear what sounds like the classic Imperial alarm.
I heard that. Yes.
Right? I think it was the score, and I think
it was a score.
I think Holt sampled that sound and put it.
You mean Bertel?
Nicholas Bertel. Put it to that sound. Put it to that waver, and he sampled the Imperial alarm. I swear, in my headcanon, that's what it is. I thought that was a really cool moment, especially like bringing in such a Imperial sound, something that we know, like a TIE fighter sound, something that's just so like, yeah, that is clearly, we know that sound to represent something from the Imperials. I thought that was a really clever use of
totally
both score and diegetic, but not diegetic, something that usually is diegetic, now used as a score sample.
I thought the same thing with the wobble pitch, emulating the like being a very interesting stand-in for or hint at the alarm, at the Imperial klaxon or whatever it's called. And sometimes I thought in other moments that it sounded reminiscent of TIE Fighter howl as well. But yeah, it is very interesting. I am curious how Nicholas Bertel did that, whether it was like actually sampled and mapped onto that, or whether it was,
cool.
More like, analog version, or not analog, but the long way of just trying to match it.
Just trying to match that. And what's, I like how he's weaving this wavy, it's just an oscillating meaning, going back and forth. Pitch change, the slowest vibrato in the world, that just seems to permeate throughout this score and this atmosphere, to the point where it's so distinct to me. I don't know if you noticed when we get the final scene of this show, and the Andor, like the ending Andor theme kind of ramp up usually starts happening at the end of these episodes. That synth part comes back in, that steady tone, but it's not wavering. They're just talking about like, oh, the people aren't coming, you're not going to get a transmission tonight. Maybe everything's over tomorrow, or just about to start. A plus line there. And the synth line comes in with the Andor theme, but it's not wavering. It's
correct.
Again, in my kind of headcanon, that's like this, like, it's steady now. It started. There's no unnerving, unnecessary like doubt of a ground anymore. It's happening. Here we are. There's no turning back.
Are you talking about when it like kind of comes in as the drone, because the end credits sort of like, oh, my piano's off. Okay, like we do hear. Yeah, because then there's another part where. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it comes in a few parts, and at some point it sounds like it's, I don't know, with the cello almost, like, because the cello comes in like. By the way, it doesn't go to minor there, which is interesting. And then the synth goes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly
Yeah.
the place I'm talking about. Yeah,
Totally.
it's cool.
Yeah, totally know what you mean.
I really liked, even if that wasn't an intentional, like, this represents this kind of a thing coming from the composer, and that's what it felt like to me. Like a really steady, we're in this now kind of a thing. Also, shout out to again the sound designers and their technological telecommunication Star Wars sounds, because that, I think the box Luthen was like fiddling with, it's got like a mix of like radio sounds, vocoder, blips and bloops, and then such detail to the point. Okay, here's epic nerdness here. He pulls the plug, and he gets the little like ending, like you disconnected dial tone kind of a thing, right? Which is funny because when you disconnect and you get that tone, it's, you know, it could be like a 60 hertz or like a B flat kind of a thing. Sometimes electricity in the U.S. and in most of Asia runs at 60 hertz, 60 cycles. Everywhere else it's 50 hertz. If you look up the tone, the note frequencies of 60 hertz, it's around. What did I write? It's like around C. No, around B. It's around a B. Around, not quite. Maybe like a flat, like a semitone somewhere. 50 hertz is around an A flat. The tone that they used for him pulling the plug was in between a B and a C. So it's very, very close. Silly detail, but that's what they were thinking. Like this is around the tone. This is what you get when the classic dial tone or the classic electricity hum or the amp hum for guitar players out there. Tends to be some sort of some semblance of like a 60 hertz cycle kind of a thing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, which is like a
I'll
B,
show you. I'll
B
play it.
flat.
I'm playing it.
Yep.
That's it.
So that's 60.
Yeah. I'm a passive shortwave radio listener. There were a lot of sounds in that receiver.
Yeah, shortwave
Was
radio.
messing with
totally.
that can be heard on the shortwave frequencies. Interesting.
I hear that. I totally hear that. Great point. Yeah, shortwave radio frequencies, and is that's cool stuff to listen to. It's weird. It can be really weird, but the sounds are really awesome.
Can we describe what that is? I'm sure that there's folks that aren't
What
aware
shortwave
of
radio? Yeah, if you could explain shortwave radio, which is very part of Ben Burtt's original sounds for things, actually. But yeah, if you could explain that.
I might screw up the definition a little here, but it's essentially short range. Shortwave, short range radio. It's for a more like, and please in the chat correct me if I'm messing something up here, but it's more like short range broadcast. You're not broadcasting to like international frequencies or like
you're
across
talking about
the
like
world or to a satellite. It's almost like the opposite of
Like
like
to
a
local?
ham radio, where like, yeah, it's like a local broadcast kind, like a very local broadcast kind of a thing. And
Gotcha.
they were famously used in a lot of like Cold War era stuff.
Oh, okay.
And World War II era stuff, where it's like
So they can be
broadcasting
intercepted?
messages. Broadcasting
so
short range
AM radio is
messages.
shortwave, yeah. AM
Very,
radio,
very, very
right?
short.
And then like FM would not be shortwave. Is that correct?
Yeah. And there's still shortwave radio towers that exist today from those eras that are still broadcasting messages that are
What?
like on a loop.
Oh my God.
It's cool. Yeah, it's cool. It's creepy, but it's cool.
Like Cold War messages?
and codes and things. It's wild.
Why are
It's
they
cool.
still playing?
Because they just weren't taken down. I don't know. They're just built to broadcast.
Oh, I see. I guess interesting. Okay.
Yeah, okay, interesting. No one just switched to them. Okay. I'll let it go. But like, what?
But yeah, totally. You know.
Another
cool
example
stuff.
of old technology being useful.
And I do love Star Wars' usage of older technology in its new interesting Star Warsy ways, you know? Like we get that scene in Last Jedi when they're trying to send a message out on those little apparatus there that at the end when they're at Crate, you know, they're trying to broadcast that signal using those like old tech from the rebellion, you know? And then they've got, you know, there's lots of little moments of radio usage and old tech in Star Wars. Yeah, I was saying I was watching the first couple episodes of the show. You know that little transmitter that he's got, right? So like the buttons on it even look like old you know, retro 70s electronic tech, like, you know, that you would see like these like red square buttons, you know, like, you know, it's
and honestly, I love that that's like the visual aesthetic of the technology of Star Wars, especially because that was like the future looking thing back in the 70s. That's what they thought, you know, or like, well, not just like what the projection of what the future might be like, but that was what like control panels in the 70s, 60s, 70s looked like. So it's like, let's add more lights and flashing things and make it look like a futuristic spaceship. Of course, they still have knobs and switches and dials and these things in the future because we use them, you know, and that's just has become the look and the aesthetic. I love that.
So Gary,
so great.
24 fan says, actually, it is the opposite. Shortwave frequencies are often targeted toward overseas audiences.
Ooh, okay.
At night,
Love
I
it.
can hear BBC, Radio China, Radio Cuba, etc. And then Alf G, tell us if we're saying your name right, says number stations still broadcast. So
Nice. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that.
So what Justin was talking about, is that what number stations are?
I think
Now
so.
I want to know. Okay. Sure.
There are definitely still stations doing their thing. World War II and Cold War propaganda, stuff like that. But yeah, okay. So thank you for that correction.
Because
Gary
shortwave, wouldn't shortwave imply high frequency? High frequency. Wait, no. I guess it wouldn't matter. Amplitude.
Yeah, it would.
Because shortwave means
yeah.
higher frequency, so it has a longer wavelength. Wait, no, it has a shorter wavelength. Shorter wavelength.
Shorter wavelength,
but higher frequency.
frequencies.
So yeah, I don't know how high we're talking. Like 5,000? Is that a thing? Is that
Probably even higher. From like could be even like the megahertz at this point, where you're just like it's beyond our range of hearing, but it's still a frequency. It's still like a very much of like a thing.
Wow.
Because we can only hear up to the
20,
average
like a 20K.
20K. So this is way above that.
Yeah. Number stations are still used by spies, not used as much during the Cold War, but I've happened upon them from time to time. How does one just happen upon them? I want to happen upon one. Anyway, let us know the spots. We'll take a field trip to one of these spy stations or whatever. But anyway, yeah. Oh, also Gorn's. If you caught a glimpse of Gorn's like data pad or whatever, it looked very satisfying. It was such a quick glimpse. Like he's turning around and you just sort of like kind of see the screen. It looked really cool. It looked lots of buttons and flashy things.
There's just so much. I don't know. Maybe I just keep saying this, but it feels like there's just so much care put into this show. That seems like such a, I don't know, simple thing to say, but I feel this way much more so with the show than other franchise shows in many ways. Like everything feels so purposeful and non-superficial in the care that they put in there, if that makes sense, right? Like the story feels like they've put a lot of care into it. These little elements of the sound design feels like they've put so much care into it. I don't know. It's just like I feel a little baffled every week that they've made this show the way that they made it, because it just feels. If it was a movie, I'd understand, because that's 3 hours, and then you just really make those 3 hours really feel like really detailed in the music and the sound and everything. But the fact that they made essentially a 12 episode season, and they put this much into it for every single frame of the show, I don't know. Maybe I'm being too hyperbolic here. It's just like I'm pretty flabbergasted at the quality, production quality across the board of this show, and especially because I'm watching some other shows that I know like seemingly have bigger audiences. Like I'll just name the Rings of Power and House of the Dragon. Like this is equal in my eye, like to my eyes and ears in its production value to these incredibly more expensive and shows that have seemingly a much bigger audience than Andor does. Like this is. The fact that this isn't like a major character, it's like, and there's no major characters that anyone outside of like Star Wars fans would even recognize in this show. You know what I mean? They have Mon Mothma is the most popular character in this show, like in terms of its public consciousness. So I don't know how to succinctly describe what I'm saying, but it's like it blows my mind how. In terms of how small the potential like marketing level of the show is, and how much care and money and like production they've put into it. It's like those things are not equal in my eyes in terms of like, this isn't the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. This is not the Boba Fett show. This is not episodes 7, 8, or 9. But it's like this insanely detailed. I don't know. It blows my mind. So I just want to make sure that I echo that, or what many people I think are saying about this show, where they're pleasantly surprised by it. So
Yeah, my bar is raised.
Yes.
Yeah, which is like
Whatever,
I didn't think I would be.
This.
Yeah,
Skeleton
I didn't
Crew.
think I would have expectations that could be now let down with this show, because it wasn't like I thought it was going to be bad. I was just like, oh, whatever. I'm sure it'll be fine. I'll have fun with it. But now I'm like, I find myself
they can
5
be
episodes
really
in.
good,
and,
actually.
I'm 5 episodes in. I'm like, they better like not disappoint me in this show. I'm like, now I have like an emotional stake in Andor.
Yeah, but because I actually feel much less worried about whether I'll like the episodes. Like I'm more invested, but don't care anymore about, like, I'm not invested. Like, I don't have the experience of thinking like, I hope they don't let me down, or like, I hope this episode is good, because I think for me, once I just like trust a show or something, then I'm much more open to like anything, and I don't have to even know what's happening. And
that's just our personality
difference. Yeah. I know. So it's been very freeing for me. I know some people think that this episode was a little bit slow, or that the pacing is slow. I've heard people say that. I personally think the pacing is perfect for me, but I do know that a lot of people are saying that. So,
I mean, we said it too, but
oh, did we? Well, I didn't.
Well, I definitely don't feel that. I haven't felt that way for a second.
Yeah,
but
here's the thing, though. When I say, for me, in my mind, when I say something's like I think it's slow. I don't think that's a bad thing.
I see.
I don't. I'm not saying
too
it's slow. It's like, oh, it's too slow. Like I'm not. It's like it's not action enough. I like slow, detail-oriented shows, movies, media, that kind of a stuff. So like for me, saying like just it's slow. Yeah, I think it's slow, but I think you're right. It's a perfect pace for like what's happening, and is giving us all the information that we need without like. At no point am I bored. At no point in the pacing, wherever it is, am I bored with this show.
Yeah.
What I like about this, the way that they're presenting it, is it almost feels like a show that's introducing you to the Star Wars galaxy for the first time, in the care that it's taking to world build, in ways that it feels like the first season of Game of Thrones, where part of that that first season is just introducing you to Westeros and the politics of everything, you know? And Andor, in many ways, it's like you could watch it and just be like, if we, you know, or if we, you know, Men in Black'd everybody's memories, you know, and said, like, you don't know what Star Wars is, you could watch this show and be like, what is this interesting intergalactic, or sorry, not intergalactic, but, you know, interplanetary, you know, political space world that we're living in now. This is an interesting universe. And because it doesn't, it kind of world builds with such care that it doesn't assume that you know everything about Star Wars already, you know? So,
I agree
with
and
you there.
disagree.
I agree. I think you could watch this without having ever seen Star Wars and still get a very informative, enjoyable experience out of this. And I think it's because...
Oh, yeah, I think so. I agree with that.
As I said in like I think in our first time, they wrote a good story and then framed it into the Star Wars world versus let's write a Star Wars story. What goes into a Star Wars story? Like, no, let's just write a good thing and it fits, you know, with everything.
Yeah.
No.
That I agree with.
But you disagree with.
No, I mean, I disagree. Well, I don't. I can't entertain I can't entertain like what if you saw things in a different order, or like things were introduced in a different order. Things, because I don't think you get like Star Wars isn't something that you can boil down to like anything, except for Star Wars the original, you know, the Star Wars of the original trilogy, or like Star Wars the first movie even. Like if you really think about it, like. So, yes, Star Wars as a universe, yes, but like it's so much more than. Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that. I just you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
I understand what you're saying.
like yes,
I understand
but
what
no.
you're saying.
Like
Yes.
technically you could know Star Wars, but Star Wars isn't like technically about knowing everything, because a lot of people love Star Wars and don't technically know a lot about it. So I think, yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea how anything what you just said indicates that you disagree with anything that was said, but
I get what you're saying.
I agree with what you said.
I disagree
Like
with
for
the,
example, for me, like for example, if the very first, I know that like
I wouldn't want to
entertainment
show
for
this
me-
to someone if I were like, you know,
First,
I love
of
Star
course
Wars and this is the first thing you should see because it does such a good job introducing the world. No.
Yes, I agree with that.
No, well, that's
But-
because I guess what I would counter with that would be, that's because I know all these things that I love about Star Wars that aren't in this show and have set me up to enjoy them in many ways, and I know all these other things and stories. So I agree. This show doesn't introduce Star Wars in the way that we all know about it. Like we don't know we know all these things about the Force and all these other things that are just straight up not in this show, right? That's fine.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm saying is that the world building of the galaxy is so rich and interesting that that it introduces these things in such a detailed way that you could watch this show and like there's not things that you need to know about the galaxy in order to not enjoy and understand the show, and that is definitely not the case for like the Clone Wars, probably.
I was gonna say,
No, I agree
like
with that.
Obi-Wan Kenobi. You know what I mean?
If,
like I'm
if
saying,
We're
Boba
talking about
Fett was
different
the first
shows.
thing we watched. Yeah.
We're talking about different aims, though. Like I agree that you could watch this show
that's
without
why,
much.
That's why I'm
without-
saying
without much
yeah,
prior
that's why I'm
knowledge of
saying
Star
you don't
Wars.
Really, that's what I'm saying. You don't really disagree with actually what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Here, yeah. So like you, that's what I'm saying. It's
Okay.
like we're not actually in disagreement, so
Okay,
you don't disagree.
yeah, okay.
We're
Right,
like
right,
I'm
right.
saying
I
something that I'm not, that you're not saying, or that
Yeah, we're talking about
yeah,
different things.
I'm saying something about the show that is not what you're saying. Okay, does that make sense? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Anyway.
So that's what
We
I'm
all
saying.
love
It
the-
feels
we
like
all love
it
the
feels like
show.
they're taking their time to show you the universe of the show in ways that like other shows don't. Right.
Yeah.
And
and I would feel comfortable watching this with someone who was not
Yes.
super knowledgeable about Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah.
However,
Because it takes
if
us
someone
so-
wasn't super
If I
knowledgeable
put on
about,
Star Wars Rebels to anybody, You know what I mean? If I put on Star Wars Rebels, I feel like that's a similar thing. It's like the similar time in the universe. They might be like, what is all this stuff? If
Yeah,
they've
that's
never seen any Star Wars. But if you put on this show, they'd be like, oh, this is an interesting galaxy. I feel like I know everything I need to know to understand this show. You know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
Yeah.
that I agree with.
I think, yeah. If I'd never seen Star Wars, I wouldn't want to start with Boba Fett. You know,
Correct.
it'd be like,
Right.
What
Could
is
you
going on
imagine?
here? Why?
And
Why?
if-
What is all
yeah.
this? Who are all these people? Where this is very much like, okay.
And if someone had
know.
never seen Star Wars and they wanted to get into it, I would not show them first.
Of course. As someone recommending.
Yeah, I definitely
this-
I wouldn't
Yeah,
either
that I
if
agree
that's
with,
what
yeah.
my aim was.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
I'm in the realm of like
Thank you.
I had no friends that knew Star Wars and wanted to show me Star Wars, and I stumbled across
Yeah.
Andor as like, oh, what's this show about? My enjoyment would be about this, you know, would not be diminished by
Yeah.
the fact that I hadn't seen the rest of the shows.
what a hilariously.
But no, I would not show this for the very first
strange
Star
and
Wars thing
hypothetical
for somebody.
conversation.
Anyways,
Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah. I wouldn't really jump into like a franchise show if I wasn't familiar with the franchise. But some people do, so yeah.
yep. So this is a good show
Some
for them.
Yeah. Anyway.
Well, I mean, but some people do like in terms of like they haven't seen Star Wars since maybe like the originals, and then they watch Mando, you know.
Yeah.
And then they like, you know, a lot of people watch Mando that like probably didn't watch the movies, you know, the newest movies, you know. So I think in that way, and some people, and that's why so many people were confused. Like, when does that take place, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people were really confused that like casual fans get confused with some of those shows because they lean so heavily on you knowing like kind of exactly where they are and when they are. I don't think this show leans in on that so hard.
Yeah.
Because
Agreed.
it really takes its time to show you everything, you know. So
Yeah.
it's cool.
Good times.
Good times.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Well, next week is episode 6. We'll be halfway through the season.
Halfway through the
Yeah.
season, and if Justin's right, it'll be the end of this 3-episode arc here. So
I'm hoping. Which means we get 2-3 more episode arcs.
Well, actually, I've heard different things about what the arcs are. I haven't really been paying attention, but I heard someone say that there's going to be a standalone episode and then a couple doubles, but I don't know. I'm not sure. But anyway, I don't know.
knows?
I'll just, watch them as they come out, and that's fine.
I want to do a prediction.
Okay.
I want to do a prediction quiz for everybody. Okay.
Okay.
Because hypothetically, next episode is the eye. Yeah.
Yes.
Right. So what does the eye sound like? Does it sound like choo 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 high pitched sounds, or does it sound like big rumble boom boom like sonic? What do you call it? Sonic charges from Boba Fett's ship type of sounds, like
Seismic
big
charges.
things, or seismic charges. That's where they are, or something, or C, something different. What do we think, everybody? What direction do you think they're going? You think
Silence.
Wow. Okay.
Silence.
You don't think they're going to show us the sound of them?
No. I think we'll hear sound of people on the ground experiencing the eye.
Interesting. So it'll be like Aurora
people.
Borealis, where it doesn't make a sound, but it's just a thing up in the sky, right?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? Okay. The Northern Lights concentrated in your kitchen?
Yeah.
What do you think, Justin?
Yeah.
I hope it sounds like a swarm, almost like a glass swarm, where it's just like a.
Oh yeah, what is it again? It's not like
kind
a
of a thing.
comet. It's like a
Just
It's a meteor
well,
shower,
they
basically.
right.
They described it like a blanket going across the sky, like it's supposed to be like insane, like really crazy big, so distracting that everyone gets to see it.
The
So I feel like it's
noctilucent
gonna
micro
be like,
somethings.
yeah, like it's gonna sound like what James first did, except like a billion of that at the same time. Pew 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 pew, but
okay.
like a billions of it happening, like a big swarm of it. That's what I hope, but. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
I think Xanthe's right, and it'll be silent. But
'Cause I think-
with really dramatic scoring. But
Yeah.
that's probably-
I think that's what if this show had more music in it, period, I would think that it is a very tinkly, crystally, glassy, little tiny particle thing. But because it's the music and sound is more realistic. That's what makes me say, like, I'm kind of basing this prediction off of the rest of the show. It's a recurrent band of crystallized noctilucent microdensities. Okay, so it is, I guess we don't know how high it is, but it sounds like it is probably in very far away that we can't hear that, right? Or that's, unless it's like actually like crosses whatever the atmosphere, I don't know what it's exactly space stuff, but it crosses the atmosphere or something. I don't know. I'm assuming it doesn't, especially since it's, I don't know. So I think it's going to be quiet, but I would like to hear, I don't know. Do you think there's going to be a crowd? Because that also is a big thing. Like, I kind of think we're going to hear a crowd. Or, you know what?
Aren't they saying aren't they saying in the show that, like, every year there's less and less people that gather to see it?
Yeah, but still, I think even if a few people gather, it would probably be more people than we see so far. Just like 5.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. Which I find interesting that
Plus
there
the
wouldn't
Imperials.
be more like within the galaxy tourism travel to see something so seemingly so rare. You'd think that people would come out to see, like the same way that people travel to go see, the Northern Lights, or they go see the, the eclipse in certain areas.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see. But it seems like we're
you-
also
you know
going to
what I
have
was reading the
Imperials
other
there,
Hmm.
right?
I was reading the other day that having having a moon and a local star being seen, like, visually seeming to be the same size in the sky is a rare thing for a planet. And that Earth is rare, and that our moon looks like it's the same size as our sun, and so that lunar eclipses themselves are quite rare. Like in the universe is what I was reading the other day, and that they were saying that if in our own universe, if there was intergalactic tourism, aliens might come visit Earth just to see a lunar eclipse.
Funny.
And so when I thought of this phenomena, I was like, that's kind of interesting. I wonder why people might seek out this crazy event. Seemingly because it happens. Is it every year it happens, or every couple
3
years?
years?
What was it? 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
that would be funny, Chief.
but exactly. That's what I think it could be. I think that's what it would be in a different show, but I don't think it's gonna be that. Michael says the music at this place will therefore probably taking over. What are you doing, James? What are you trying to?
I'm trying
When
to
you
do
wish
If
upon
You
a
Twinkle
Star.
on a Star.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think
Yeah.
I think it could also be the type of thing that because this action is timed to happen during this event, and so much is like the positioning. It's there's a lot of people. The Imperial's officers are going to be able to see it. There's going to be a lot of people there. The event's going to be a distraction. I think it might lend itself to sort of a montage type thing where we see multiple. This is a prediction where we see multiple like shots of people in different sides of this carrying out the mission, all while this thing is happening, and there's like a crowd of people like going ooh type of thing. Just a thought.
Okay. Well, right, because they're
Bye, Jonah.
they're gonna be flying off planet. Yeah. That's the
Something
whole
like
idea.
that?
That's the whole plan, right? Is they're trying to use the meteor shower as
a
their cover, to not just a distraction, but that's their cover, right? So they're they're going to use the shower as something they're going to be hypothetically flying through, like when they escape, right? Isn't that what it is?
Through, but
I thought they just meant it's our cover, as in like that's our cover. That's what's distracting everybody at this.
But isn't
moment.
they're hijacking that ship, and that's why they had that whole thing about like how do you like Andor is like incredulously like explaining how to like launch it, right? Isn't that what they're stealing?
I think they're stealing that because that's gonna like handle the weight of like these credit wheels that we saw.
But then they're going off planet, right? Like they're not going to stay on the planet to escape. They're going to try to get off of there. That's their escape plan, right? So,
but aren't they trying to like mess up some Imperial stuff?
They are, but then they have to get the hell out of there, right? So,
So
eventually they're going to have to leave the planet, right?
Aren't they like when Lieutenant Gorn talks to those Imperial officers who are like, we want to see the eye or whatever, and sort of morale will be low unless we have just a
Yes.
strictly necessary crew here. I feel so that means I feel like that means a lot of the Imperials will be off duty and not actually like at that base to be
Right.
like taking care of business if there's intruders or anything happening.
Yeah.
They'll be distracted because everyone will be like on taking an off night watching the Eye of Aldhani.
Yes.
So it could also just mean reduced Imperial presence.
Yeah, but they actually said, like, how do you plan to get out of there? Like, Andor was like, how do you plan to get out? And then they let them know about this thing. And so he's like, oh, that's how you're going to escape, right? Like, because he's like, how do you plan on getting out of there, right? That was a whole conversation.
Right. And they
Oh,
just
I
don't
think
know
it was
how to.
I think he was saying like, how do you get out of how are you planning to get out of the base in the first place?
Yeah, the garrison.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're trying like they're stealing
Okay.
the car to get out. I'd have to go back and rewatch, and I don't remember a plan of like how they're getting off world. I think they just didn't know how the heck they were even getting out of the base yet.
Okay. But here's the other secondary thing is like they are still going to leave the planet when they
Yes.
leave.
Yeah,
like
they have
with this
to.
plan. So my point I'm trying to make here is they're going to be out in space when this thing is happening out there, right? And so my point is like I think we're going to get sound design for this thing because they're going to be probably flying right next to it or near it. Right?
That would be
like
cool.
their spaceship is going to be out in space outside of the planet while there is a giant meteor shower out there. So I think I think it might be silent from when they're standing on the planet.
I see what you're saying.
But we're gonna hear it when they pass the rocks in space, you know.
Perhaps.
But then
I hope
again,
we get a
the
shot.
But then
asteroid
I
the
can't even
asteroid
imagine
field
that.
in Empire Strikes Back doesn't make any sound.
I can't
That would be
imagine.
how funny? Okay, hold on, real quick. How funny would it be if we get the score that we've gotten for the last 6 episodes, but then as soon as they're out in space and they're flying through the rocks, all of a sudden we
turns
hear bam 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 bam, like they just immediately shift gears into like, and they just give us the asteroid fields theme again.
Yes.
That would be jarring.
Do, do,
Um,
do, 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 do.
Yeah, how they'd be like, wait, what? What's
Seismic
happening?
charge
I think
plays out.
what
By
I
the way,
think-
we haven't gotten another like drum set moment yet in the score yet.
No,
No.
Like we haven't gotten like a big, and I don't mean like necessarily another part that has drum set in it. I mean an incredibly out of nowhere surprising score moment that is like strange and surprising like that. To my opinion, we haven't gotten anything like that yet, and I thought we would. Like that's what I
did so
said
many-
that first stream.
Yeah, there's so many like daring things that happened in those first musically
Yeah.
in those first 3 episodes that
And it hasn't
feels
happened
like these
yet.
2 were just like just calm down everybody, we'll get there, you know,
Yeah.
like one of those
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
And then like next episode it's gonna be like a saxophone is gonna come through and we're gonna get this like rocking sax solo over you know what I mean. That's what I'm hoping is like the next big daring Star Wars music thing is like just rock 80s rock sax saxophone kind of a thing. Through the whole thing. I would love that.
So the thing that
Okay,
about
there's
the eye,
some.
the thing going back to the eye, that would surprise, or in thinking about the music of the Eye of Aldhani close up, I think what surprises me most about even considering that is like I would be so curious what that shot would look like. Not the eye itself, but just like I don't know if we've had many shots in Andor that are just the view from inside the cockpit that are not just flying in hyperspace. Just like
Yeah.
the kind of space like seeing outside the windows or whatever type of things.
That would be an amazing shot to see this event from the atmosphere of the like on the outskirts of the you know, like looking at the planet and just seeing maybe like what this like streak of a cloud or the planet kind of going through.
Well, I also
something.
I feel like it would be incredibly dangerous to fly in right next to it. Like I feel like it
Yeah,
doesn't
of
sound like
course.
the kind of thing where they can get too close.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It
But
surely
you know,
doesn't.
you can't fly the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs without a little danger and space monsters and you know stuff. So
So Xanthe, you're saying we haven't gotten too many like inside the cockpit, or like inside the
Outside
ship
the-
shots? Is that what you're saying? Or outside the
Outside
ship
the
shots?
ships.
I meant inside, but outside too.
We got a little bit of that, like when Andor's flying off planet in the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
We get the what do you call it? We do get the Cyril's like crew inside the ship when he's going to land into. Get a little bit of that, but there's not.
But it's
there's not a
like the
huge amount of
focus is on
window
the
shots.
people in there. It's not like what's out the window, right? It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
them
for sure,
traveling.
for
Like
sure.
they could be on a bus. We don't know
Yeah.
really what's outside.
Yeah.
So yeah, would be interesting.
So,
Andor
yeah,
is 7.
cool.
Wait, I don't get it. Ocean's 11 style.
Ocean's 11, but it's Andor 7.
Andor
Oh,
7.
because there's 7 people.
'Cause
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
I get it now. I was like,
Andor
2 people
7
are
is-
saying 7. Yeah.
Grand,
thought it
Grand
was
Theft-
11.
Grand Theft Andor.
Okay, I'm with you. That one wasn't over my head. Just took me a long time to get it.
Not at all. Not at all.
Anyway,
Well, excellent.
yeah, so we'll be
Good
back next
stuff.
week at 2 hours earlier than this time. Sorry for the people overseas, right,
Yeah.
James? Next week is
Oh,
11
is that
a.m.?
right?
That's what you
I think we're at 11 next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, so next week it'll be the same time that it was last week. And then, yeah. And then we'll tell you what it
We'll
will
go
be the
from
week
there.
after. Yeah, we'll go from there. But yeah, we have some schedule stuff. So we'll be back next week to talk about Andor episode 6. As always, let us know at any point if you have questions or things, that you notice that you want us to talk about. But hopefully there will be a lot to talk about, and we can get back to doing more of the quizzes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. See you all
All right.
next week. And
Woo!